Toronto's top cop is calling 2018 a unique year when it comes to loss of life as we grapple with a record 96 murders, a total which just grew by one earlier today. Guns were used in more than half of those homicides. 2 of those lives were lost during the mass shooting in busy Greektown. Well, I'm here right now live on the Danforth where some very scary moments unfolded back in July. 13 people were wounded when a gunman started firing into patios and restaurants. 2 people were killed, including a 10-year-old girl who was out for ice cream with her family that day. Now, during a year-end news conference with Mark Saunders this morning, the police chief talked about the city's growing violence. He also said that more guns than ever before are making their way onto our streets.
The guns are coming from different places. The crime guns, a lot of them are domestic. We've got a growing concern. When we talk about technology and we talk about 3D printed guns right now, you will see an increase of that. So it's not a matter of, the old school, it's coming from this border or it's coming in gas tanks and things along those lines. It'll be able to be manufactured. The playbook's already out. If somebody wants a gun, they're going to get a gun from whatever stream. There are more streams to get access to a gun than ever before.
Chief Saunders says 514 handguns were seized by police this year. That's 222 more guns than last year. Still, the number of shooting deaths has doubled since 2013. Crime expert James Dubrow has been writing about the city's guns and gangs for decades.
First of all, the guns being made domestically is a really interesting development because they knocked out one ring about a month ago, was it 2 months ago, where they seized about 30 basically homemade guns. 3D guns, I think that's slightly exaggerated. I don't think there are actually any hard evidence that a 3D gun has been used. It sounds great, but it sounds like it's a wonderful technology to avoid detection and everything else, but they really haven't made a case that those things have been used and that they actually function.
According to Dubrow, 50% of Toronto's firearms are being smuggled over the border, and he says it's still pretty easy to get them in.
I know criminals that have gone over to Buffalo and other places and just picked up as many guns as they could. And
how are they getting them over the border?
Well, they hire a driver or bring a driver in. It's someone who is disposable member of the gang or an associate, and 9 out of 10 times they get through. They can't check everyone.
10 lives were also lost in April's deadly van attack when a rented van went barreling through the Yonge and Sheppard area, knocking people off their feet. Another notable event was the arrest of alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur, leading Chief Saunders to call this year unique.
This is a year like no other year. We had 2 mass casualty incidents. There's a lot to be said for that. On top of that, we've arrested somebody, allegedly serial killer. You factor all of these things, and for me to say that this is a normal year, I'd be misleading you, and you'd be misleading the public if that's what you're going to be turning towards. This was a unique year. I'm certainly not looking for another year like that.
Well, Adrian, the 96 murders we have seen in Toronto this year broke the previous record of 89 that was set back in 1991. Toronto crime specialist James Dubrow tells me that a very brazen gang war is what spiked Toronto's homicide record 27 years ago.
There was a nasty Vietnamese gang war going on. They were shooting people in all the restaurants in Toronto. There were just bodies all over the place in restaurants, and everyone was afraid to eat. It was a very, very serious situation in the summer of '91. At least 10 or 15 people were shot to death in restaurants, Spadina, College, that whole area, and it was like a war zone. What amazes me, having been around so long, watching all this stuff, is that it's still so easy to get guns into Toronto and give it to kids, sell it to kids who then shoot each other.
Well, how did the city and police get a handle on things after 1991 and when those were?
Yeah, it was very difficult, but again, it was an long intelligence-driven process. They had what they called an Asian crime unit, and they still do, but they had a joint forces unit. They got inside some of the gangs. They identified who was doing the killings. So all of that led to a real crackdown, and the Asian crime unit just swooped down and arrested most of the people. A lot of them were convicted.
Well, plenty has been made about Toronto breaking or setting a new homicide record this year. We do have to point out that 12 of those murders happened in 2 incidents, the van attack on Yonge Street and the mass shooting that happened right here on the Danforth.